Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Spiritual Spotlight series. Today, I am joined by the amazingly talented Tracy Blom. She is a best-selling author with over 20 published titles in bookstores, museums, zoos, airports, and major retailers across the United States. Every book she has ever created first began as a dream, written and recorded in one of her many dream journals, which is fantastic. Dreams are a common thread that wind between her stories and for a long time was perplexing even to her. And over time, she came to understand and cherish the gift of nightly vision and went on to create fairy tales, young adult novels, and lighthearted picture books. I also know that she also has adult books as well, which I'm super cool to talk to her about. If you look closely, you can decode the underlying messages in all of her work, which most of them encourage the readers to believe in themselves, embrace their differences as gifts, and make the world a better place. Thank you so much, Tracy, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited you're here. So, when did you first start having these night visions?
Yeah. So I didn't even know that that's what they were, but I was having them when I was like 6 years old. And so I would like wake up and I'd be like, Mom, I had this dream. And I follow it would be like from start to finish for the whole book. And it would be either like the inspiration
Yeah.
for that book, like
Uh-huh.
I remember it being presented over a series of nights, like
Almost
in
like
a
chapters.
row. Yeah. So since I was a kid, but I didn't really know
Do
like
you
what they were.
so did you feel then, were you kind of alarmed by them, or were you like, "Oh, this is pretty cool?"
Um, I didn't I didn't really know what they were, but then when I got older and I started having like I don't know, like very vivid dreams and dreams where I couldn't explain them. Like dreams where I'm like, okay, I had a dream about this and then it just happened.
Oh,
Or I had a dream about this person and then I met them later that day. Like um stuff like that where I was like, what's wrong with me?
oh,
Yeah. So that's kind of how it started. But and I really thought like, oh, there must be something wrong with me. Like I should probably like
oh.
go see someone.
Oh no. Did
Yeah.
you feel like you were having like hallucinations or almost like a, oh
Yeah.
my
Sorry, my
goodness.
eyes are like watering big time. I'm like, oh, but
Listen, guys, she's getting the vision.
I
And
know.
eyes water, okay? This is psychic powers in action.
Yeah, they are watering. But yeah, so like when I was a little kid, I just thought they were like just neat dreams that I would write
Right.
down. But then when I got older, it was like, oh gosh, like no one else has these things happening. Like I would talk to my sisters and they're like, no. And and like uh other people in the family
Right.
really didn't talk about this type of thing. And so I really kept it like bottled up and was like, okay, maybe I should just write it down and like maybe come back to it one day.
So did you find, so when you had that kind of moment where you're like, all right, I'm gonna start writing this down because there's people in my life that aren't experiencing this. How did you then take that and translate it into, no, this is actual stories that I'm being told, and into your magical books?
Yeah, it was actually I started writing them as poems for a little bit. And then somebody was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about putting drawings with some of these? These would be really cool books for kids." And I was like, "No, that's who would read it? Like, what are you talking about?"
Are you
So it kind of
serious?
started with that. Like it was
Yeah,
like, oh, well, maybe I could try one.
yeah.
And then it just kind of, now I'm at 30. I just published 30. So
You have 30 published books.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, that is amazing. So then I guess I want to ask you this. So do you draw them, or is this the visions that you see that you now have someone else that you work with that take your vision and put them to the art?
Yeah, I work with different artists
Yeah.
depending on the style of the book and the feeling, but then um I usually put like little notes off to the side, like I envision this on this page. It would be cool to see this on this page. Can
Yeah.
you have a character doing this on this page? And very specifically for the book I published called The Angel Tree,
Yeah.
that one is about different archangels, and that one was specific in the
Right.
dream about, this angel should have this color,
Mhm.
and the angel should represent this. And I go on page 2, you know, like it was like, it was like so specific. So I was really, you know, detailed with the illustrator on that book where I
Yeah.
was like, has to be what's on this page. I don't know.
And did you feel like with the Angel Tree book, like the angels were coming to you in dream time and like kind of sharing their story with you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
It was really special. Like it just felt like it was supposed to be created, and it almost felt like I was just like the person writing, like the scribe for it.
I
And it
love
was their
that.
book.
It's a very like, but it's also like a color, like you have the Angel Tree and Me, and then you also have the Angel Tree coloring book.
Yes. I wanted to teach about chakras.
Nice.
But it felt like it was supposed to be 2 books.
Okay.
And so in the dreams, I kept getting 2 books. And I was like, I'm really confused about this because one had like what looked like mosaic,
Hmm.
stained glass almost.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? Am I doing this all wrong? And then it kind of clicked when I saw this artist online who did like really beautiful coloring pages that looked mosaic. And I went, oh, it's a coloring book. And it was just that aha moment, you know.
I love that. So, like, you have like the Guardians of Eden. Can you tell me a little bit about that series?
Yeah, this was the book inspired by that 6-year-old dream I had.
Wow.
Yes. Yes. So when I was a kid, I kept dreaming about a little boy in a garden, and every night he would go and see a different garden, and the gardens were pieces of his previous lifetimes. So
That's
like
so
like
cool.
yeah, so like that 6-year-old me like created
Having going to past life experiences with,
yeah.
wow, that must have been intense.
Yeah, well, a 6-year-old little me, I'm just like, oh, I had this dream about the boy in the garden again, and I would just write it down, and his name was Matthew. Matthew is nowhere to be found in the Guardians books. Um, I changed it from a boy to a girl,
Okay.
and then I changed it from like Matthew as the guide to actually a constellation called Cygnus, which is the Northern Cross, because I felt like I was like I don't know. I did a ton of research on constellations during this
Love
process.
that.
Yeah, so I
That's
kind of
yes.
changed it, and I was like, I don't know if this is okay to change it, but this is what I'm changing it to.
Did you find that as you were weaving these stories, like as a child, then going into, your adolescence, the teenage years, and really having it's almost like prophetic visions that you're having, like a clairvoyant sense. Did you find that you were also like tapping into more of your intuitive senses? Like you said, I changed part of it. Did you feel
Yeah,
called to change part of the story?
I did because you know when I looked back on it and I started writing it as an adult, I wasn't having dreams of Matthew. I was having dreams of other things, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, so that was like I kind of felt like maybe I was like guided as a kid to start looking into it,
Yeah.
but then as an adult, like take the new version,
Hmm.
and turn it into what it is now. So now it's a trilogy at the moment for young adults, but I also just created a 4-part backstory series called Avalon, and it's all about like the mythical island of
Yep.
Avalon, all the King Arthur stuff, but with my own spin on it. So like all those characters came in dream. All of the pieces of it, every backstory, every origin, all dream.
I am obsessed. That's
I
amazing.
love it. It's so much fun for me to like, it's like I get a little puzzle piece in the night and then I wake up and I just kind of put a twist on it.
Do you have like because you've been, I mean, this is like a lifetime of having these dreams and then these books. Did you ever find that you're like, okay, like do you have a ritual now when you're going to sleep? You're like, okay, I'm ready. Give me the next chapter.
I've tried that and it's not like it doesn't work
Like,
like that
okay,
for
come on,
some reason.
Rachel.
Yeah, like I've tried that. Like I'm like, okay, I'm ready to write this next chapter. Like, come on. And it's like that's not how they're
Wow.
given to me, I guess.
So it's kind of
Um,
like whenever you're ready, the story will appear.
yeah, yeah.
Good. And then do you find yourself like, so, but it sound were your parents supportive of you as a child? Like, okay, you have these dreams and they're creative, and like, did they support you in those, or did you feel more of like, okay, I'm gonna lock this up until I'm older?
I didn't really talk about it much
Okay.
as a kid. Like I feel like it was kind of like, um, hey, I had this cool dream, and like my mom would be like, oh, that's neat, write it down. Like,
I
like
love
she would,
that she encouraged that.
yeah. But then it would be like, okay, now go play soccer. Like, go do this, go climb the tree, go do, but then it was like when I was older, I remember talking to my mom and I'm like, isn't this weird? Like, isn't this weird? Like, you don't have this? And she goes, well, I mean, I think my mom was very intuitive and she never talked about it. Because when she was growing up, you know, it was very,
Hush,
you don't,
hush.
yeah, like hush, hush, hush type of stuff. And like, um, we really even weren't raised with a ton of religion
Yeah.
either. So it was kind of like, we went to church and
Mhm.
like on the major holidays, like the Christmas, Easter stuff, but not really like regular church goers.
Yeah.
But I remember talking to my mom about it and being like, don't you find this strange? Like I had this dream and then I went here and then this is what I saw. And she's
Right.
like, yeah, yeah, that's special. Like, but it really wasn't like there. I felt like I was looking for like
Right.
someone to mentor me or teach me or guide me. And I really didn't have like that person there.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but now you do that for the people that read your books, that you
Hey, yeah.
teach them to believe in themselves and that embrace that there are differences, and like you said, make the world a better place. So
Yeah.
it's almost that you've put into your art and into your work that this is kind of the missing piece that you had, you know, and how do
Yeah.
you move forward with it? I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of what I do, try to put the stuff out there that I, feel like could be helpful for kids, because I know like as a kid, like having the same type of experience, you might be like, what is this? What's wrong with me? Type of thing. So it's nice to kind of put that out there for them too.
And do you find that parents now are more, I feel, from my own perspective, I feel like parents are more open now to more intuitive gifts and more awakenings. And I mean, I would imagine that your books are like a valuable resource. Like, okay, you want to learn about the chakras? Let's get this book, you know?
Yeah, I hope so. And it does seem like that. I have had some people like give me some backlash about, not a ton, but just like, people who are like not open to that and
Yeah.
not looking at that at all. And they're like, you know, someone told me even about my book, The Lighthouse, which is about, finding God and a higher power and connecting to the light and the light within in hard times.
Yeah.
That book is super special to me. And somebody who told me, I feel like your book is missing Jesus. And if you would just, and was like very adamant about like that I need to like save myself and do all this stuff. And I'm like, did you read the book? And I it takes a lot for me to like constructively put something back into words that
Yeah.
I don't know, like when I get confrontation, like I just kind of shut down. So I was like, do I respond to this or but yeah, so I've had some people that are like, you know, that way and
Yeah.
have had some criticism, but I feel like that's part of being an author too. The more people that read your books, not everyone's gonna want,
Resonate with what you're writing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I myself have had trolls and people, and I'm like, hmm, hmm.
Yeah.
And then I, like you, I'm like, well, do I respond to this? And I mean, I have my knee jerk reaction where I want to whoop some butt, and then
Right.
I'm like, but I'm, but then I
Yeah.
have this moment of, well, you know what? I'm not going to give any more power to this,
Right.
and block and delete.
Right. Yeah. There's that moment where you're like, how much do I want to spend on this? Like, do I
Right,
want to have it consume 5 minutes of my day? Do I want it
right.
to like be on my mind? Or you just hit the block delete, and it's
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you still kind of think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but I love the fact, I mean, like the lighthouse, like you said, it's very special to you, and finding the power within. And for those that, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I also, I talk to angels, and I talk to fairies and the elementals, and
Yes.
but I love the fact that you're like, no, this is how to claim the power within, because for kids especially, they model their parents' behavior, and it's hard, I
Yeah.
think, to find that light and to really truly empower themselves as kids, especially if it's, we get into programming and the paradigms and, what in the matrix.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to show like, hey, look, maybe I'm not, maybe as a parent, I'm not explaining it to my child, but maybe I can read you this book that then says, hey, let's talk about angels. Let's talk about spirit. Let's talk about, like for you're clairvoyant and you have these amazing visions. And for a child, that can be overwhelming, like
Oh, yeah.
I've met some people while doing these interviews, and they see spirits and they sit at the end of their bed, and it can be scary. And well, let me tell you this book about how you can bring in the angels and protect yourself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of, that's my goal. Like, because I didn't even know about different angels.
Right.
I didn't even know. So, like, when I was having these dreams, even a couple years ago, about these different angels, and I went, are there more than one? Like, I guess there's more than one. Like, and then I started researching because, you only hear about the ones in the Bible.
So true. So
Really, you
true.
hear about Gabriel and you hear about Michael and
Right.
but
Right.
then Raphael, but you don't really hear about the
You
others
don't. That's
ever.
so
It's like, where's their book?
so true. And it's hard. You're right. It is hard to find books about angels and not about like the main ones,
Right.
unless you're like you're like, okay, are there more than one? And
Yeah.
there's hundreds, like, and that's so it's you bring up such a good point. Like I honestly myself, I think I only knew about the ones in the Bible until I got
Yeah.
introduced to an energy healing modality, and they bring in 9 healing angels, but I didn't know there was one Sarah or Daniel, or,
Right.
and then you have books. I mean, it is hard. I want to say, so you're right. You're right. Because I actually just had a friend of mine ask me, and she's like, what book do you recommend for about learning about the angels? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, good question. But the book that I
Right.
use is no longer in print.
It's funny. I was trying to do the same thing and I bought this book
Oh
and
gosh, I wonder if it's the same one.
it's probably the same one. Well, no, because this one, I bought this one, this angel
What?
book. And
Angels. Okay.
well, but I started reading it and I don't think he mentions one angel in it.
Oh my gosh.
It's about, you know, it's a good book, but it's about like courage, sincerity, comfort, confidence, things you can find through God and things like that. But I don't think he has one angel mentioned in here. And I went, what the?
So
Oh,
my
yeah.
book, which is the Essential Doreen Virtue collection. Now, Doreen Virtue no longer
Right.
believes in angels and whatnot.
Oh, really?
Correct.
Oh,
She's a Christian now, and nothing. I'm a Christian as well, but her Christian beliefs have led her to a different path.
oh,
And so I'm somebody who learned how to read oracle cards from Doreen Virtue, and I took angelic mediumship from her son and her fairyologist course. And in the past, like I want to say it was the past 5-6 years, she no longer believes in this, but
oh,
this book is amazing, and like it's a really good resource book. And for anyone who like, she talks about Kuan Yin and Krishna and Kali and Jesus. I mean, she talks about Jesus, Isis. She goes into all the archangels. It's a really, really good
that's
book. But
awesome.
what I love about it, like Jeremiah, she also breaks it down into Archangel Ascended Masters. But what are you looking like, slowing down from a hectic pace? Who would you call on? Well, Archangel
Right.
Jophiel. Okay. I want to maybe have organization. I know it's Metatron. I don't even need to look. That's always Metatron.
What a helpful book. What a
It's a
very
great
helpful
book.
book.
It's the
Yeah.
Essential Doreen Virtue collection. And although she does not,
Darn, I wish I could get a copy.
you probably You probably can't on Amazon because I will say is that I was actually able to because I was texting her back and forth. I was like, oh, what's the name of that book? But I wasn't at home or in my office. And then when I got home, I think I found it on Amazon.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
it's
that's so
fun.
cool. Yeah,
And then I know like there, but it is hard. Like and again, and I'm sorry, like I keep going back to this, but it is hard to find a good resource book on angels.
yeah,
Yes, you can see them in the Bible, and that's great, but there's so many other angels to work with that aren't listed in the Bible. You
yeah,
know, like
yeah.
if you're a child who struggles with ADHD, well, who do you call on? Well, you call on Archangel Metatron. Well, if I don't know that,
Right.
like, or if you don't have a parent, like, who's like, hey, let's, you know,
Yeah, yeah. And that was kind of my goal was
love
like,
that.
let's if kids are, scared, or if kids need help with their words, or they need help with creativity or different things, like I'm gonna just put it out there in a picture book
Love
so
that.
that, if they feel like they need to call on angels, they
Yeah.
can, because I don't think that people talk about that enough, that you can call on angels, and and they listen and you can work with them and all this stuff. So
There's a whole team that supports us. We
yeah.
never are alone. So I do have a question. I currently my niece right now, she's 5 years old and she struggles with nightmares.
Oh.
And so what one of your books would you recommend that I get for her that can help her with nightmares?
Oh my gosh. You know, um,
She's like all of them.
well, no, I personally still struggle with nightmares too. And so
And she has a
I
really hard time. She wakes up like she's been staying at my house the last couple of nights because her parents are out of town. She's been fine, but when she's at home, like they have a monster box and they have this and they have all of these things and I just what book would you write? Because she loves to read. She loves to read. She loves to draw. She loves art.
yeah, I would say maybe The Lighthouse is a good one, which is about, in troubling times or scary times, finding that inner light, and also finding the light in the night type of thing. So that would be a good one. And I would say, maybe when she was a little older, the Avalon book
Mm.
has this girl who goes to the island of Avalon, and she is training with the fairies. And so the fairies teach her a protection spell. And the protection spell involves putting a bubble around you. And I like even when I go to sleep at night, I don't know if this sounds like woo, but like I envision a bubble around my bed
Oh
before.
no, no, no! I do the same thing. I do
Oh.
it's a crystal cage.
And I feel like when I set that boundary, even before I go to sleep, like
Yes.
I can wake up in the night, even if I have a bad dream, and I go, it's there. I know it's there. Nothing can touch me. I'm safe. Like,
I do the same thing. Yeah.
yeah,
I do a prayer. I call in my spirit guides, I call in my angels, I clear away any energy that's no longer mine that needs to go back to wherever it belongs. It's a Faraday cage. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you.
yeah. And I mean, and I also I sleep with a silver cross by my bed. Like, I don't know.
Love that.
I feel like in the night, if I have a bad dream, I'll reach for that little cross and I'll hold it, or I'll put it under my pillow, or something like that, which is just like kind of like a best practice type of thing for me, because
Yeah,
I find a lot of comfort and protection in Jesus. And so
absolutely.
that's for me, but it's not for everybody. But
Could
like,
be for anyone, absolutely. Whatever
yeah,
you feel is maybe it's Mother Mary.
right,
It
right.
doesn't matter. It could be
Yeah,
anyone. I love
yeah.
that.
Something that brings comfort, something that makes her feel safe.
Yeah.
And maybe this is for me to write a story like this, something about what you can do for nightmares, because someone who has had them for quite some time, like
Yes.
it's yeah, like they're not easy to deal with, especially at a young age.
So you said that you have nightmares. Do you ever, I'm going to ask you this, and I'm sorry if it's inappropriate. Do you ever turn your nightmares into books?
Yes. Yes, I do. Actually, because a lot of my what I feel like are like messages
Right.
and inspiration and things come in the night. And
Okay.
and so when I was having nightmares, and even still today, if I have a nightmare, I'm like, is something there? Do I have
Okay.
something in my house? Like, is there a ghost here? Like, like
Yeah.
that type of thing? Or is this part of a book? And so that was something that I was like trying to figure out for a little bit, because I kept
Yeah.
dreaming about this woman and she was terrifying. Well, she is the main villain for like my, what is it? Guardians 4, which I'm in the process of writing. And she's also part of the Avalon series, but I show how she gets to where she is in Avalon. So like she starts off as this great kid, but like kind of she goes through some stuff and she ends up turning into one of like the main villains, because
Oh my gosh.
she's like she's a vampire, more or less. Like everything she touches, she can inherit the powers of. So like you can imagine that, like if you touch a light bulb and suddenly you can like fling light at people, like okay, that's cool. Like as a kid, you can see how she can become this monster.
Yes.
Yeah, but like I was dreaming of her and I'm like, God, she's terrifying. Like, why do I keep dreaming of her? And I'm like, she's the villain. Like, that's why, I'm supposed to feel this.
And then as soon as you identify that she's the villain, does it
Yeah.
then take away that charge of it being kind of scary to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like once I identify her as like, oh, this isn't like something that I'm supposed to be scared of. I'm
Right.
supposed to see her for who she is in this dream and latch onto these character traits and then put them into the story, because it kind of showed me like how she got to where she is,
Yeah.
why she's like this. Because in one of the dreams, she was like, I mean, she evolved from like this kid who's just taken powers here and there from everything into this nightmarish thing
Yes.
that was like black smoke, like. And so I kind of thought like, how would somebody get from there to there? And
Yeah.
so that's the origin story in Avalon that I'm writing at the same time as writing her adult story in Guardians 4. So I'm writing them in tandem.
Love
Right.
that.
Yeah.
That
Which
is
is
so
cool.
cool. So interesting. It's just fascinating how you've been able to take this gift and that sometimes can maybe not feel like a gift.
Right.
And you've transformed it into these empowering books for everyone. I mean, honestly, it's for all ages. And
Yeah.
one of the things that you started now is that you actually have a book creation mentorship. Can
Yes.
you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this kind of came out of nowhere, but you wouldn't believe the amount of people who say, man, I've always wanted to write a book, but I just don't have the time. Or I don't know if anyone would read it. I don't know the first thing about it or how to get started. And I just kept getting kind of almost weekly for a little bit, like over the past couple of months, people coming to me and saying, hey, I have this idea for a kid's book. I don't know where to start. Could you help me? And
Oh,
so, like, I work a daytime job, so I'm busy during the day. And then I have this, the author stuff, and I also
yeah.
do school visits. And I have my own
You also
podcast.
go to like sign at Barnes and Noble and
Yeah,
yeah.
and I
And
have
you
book
have
events
a
on the
podcast. Okay.
weekend. So I have a lot going on. But I thought, like, if I can allot like 1 hour a week for a mentorship with this person,
Yeah.
I could get him, because I know the ins and outs of it,
Yeah.
by now. And I said, I can develop a booklet, I can develop a program, and 1 hour a week for what I am picturing is going to be like a 4 to 5 month period.
Right, right.
I can take someone from start to finish for creating a manuscript, getting it illustrated, and published under their own name. And so I just started working with my first client, and we're almost done with his book. It's in the illustration process, but it's really fun to see someone else's dreams come to life,
And then the special thing about this is that it's anticipating and being published on his birthday, which you
Yes.
also found that you publish a lot of your books on special days as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's so weird. Like it was just really validating, because not on purpose, but over the years, I've just happened to publish books on birthdays of other people that are special to me. And Like I had one that was published on my birthday, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even plan that. One that was published on my sister's birthday, one that was published on my dad's birthday. And then like wedding anniversary, like just special days where like, because you can submit a book for publication, on, say Sunday, but then it has to go through a process of review and it has to meet parameters, and then they will announce your publication day. Like
You don't even
so,
pick it.
no, so like you can kind of ballpark what that day might be. So that's why I'm always so like excited when it happens to fall on someone's birthday. And the illustrator for this book was like, "Oh, we'll have this done probably around like December 5th." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, that's this guy's birthday. It's December 5th." So it was really validating, I think, for me to be like, okay, so this is something I'm in the right place. I'm
I
doing
love
it.
that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's like the universe saying, okay, okay,
Yeah.
so
And
special.
like people from that I haven't talked to for like a really long time, just kind of resurfacing in my life and saying, hey, I have a friend who wants to write a kid's book. Can you help them? Hey, I saw you on LinkedIn doing stuff with Barnes and Noble. Could you help my friend? Just so I think just in the last couple weeks, 4 more people just kind of came to me for that. And I'm like, okay. Oh.
Would you start doing it? Would you only do it one-on-one or would you do it as a group?
One-on-one.
Perfect. I
Yeah.
love it. And tell me a little bit about your radio show, the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network.
Yes. So I'm a part of the Authors on Their Global Radio Network, and it's mainly a podcast show for highlighting authors. However, my show is called Books, Kids, and Creations.
Love that.
I feature people who inspire and uplift future generations with their work. So I've had people on that are like work for NASA, people who have been the space advisors to the president of the United States, Olympic champions, ballerinas. I mean, roller coaster designers, anyone who kids can look up to and say, I want to do that. How'd they get there? So yeah, it's really neat talking about people's journeys and like how they went from one place to where they are today.
It's very interesting. I don't know about you, but if you ever, when you were a child, do you ever think about, oh, when I was a child, I wanted to do this?
Yeah.
And like, are you doing it now? Like when I was a child, I wanted to be a journalist and I wanted to work in medicine and I work in medicine and I and I interview people.
Yeah. I think when I was younger, I definitely wanted to be a journalist.
Love
I
that.
remember wanting to be a journalist, and it wasn't until I was interviewing somebody for my podcast. It was last December at the Crone Conservatory. I was interviewing the guy who puts on the big Christmas display, and he goes, "Oh, so you're the journalist?" And I went, "Oh, I
I
guess."
am.
Like it was like this moment where I never really labeled that, but I was like, "Oh, I guess I am. I'm interviewing you, and I'm making a video, and I did research about you, so I guess I am." Like,
Oh, I love that.
I also wanted to be a backup dancer for like In Living Color, because In Living Color was like big when I was a kid. So that
The
never
best
happened.
show? Wasn't the best show? Miss J-Lo? Come on now. Come on now.
I was like, I want to be a fly girl so bad. Like that was my dream as a kid. Probably more so, yeah, than the
I
journalist.
wanted to be back up in a music video too.
Yeah, like I was like, maybe this can still happen someday. Someday.
But it's tough because they don't really have those. I mean, they don't really have those kind of like shows anymore.
Right. No, they should bring it back.
They should bring it back. Bring back MTV is actually the music television network.
Yeah. Yeah, they should bring it back. They should bring back these shows.
Those
Oh,
are
I
the
loved
best.
them.
Those are the best. I remember I also wanted to be a comedian. Like that was
Oh,
I really want to be a comedian. And then yeah, I was told don't quit your day job. So I'm gonna read one of your books and I'm gonna find my power within, and then I'm being dead serious. And then
yes.
I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna join an improv group, and you guys watch out.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? Like if I would have had that kind of thing, like your inspiration and as a child, I mean, because these things stick with you, what people
Yeah.
say. And like you were going through having scary dreams and having empowering dreams, but also like how do you pick this out and how do you deal with that? Because
Yeah.
especially right now, I don't know about you, but I feel like a lot of kids are going through an awakening process. A lot of people are going through an awakening process because all of these teams are trying to work with us and their messages are getting a little louder.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would think that a lot of, well, I don't really know. I mean, I know that there's people who have all kinds of different gifts,
Yes.
but I have to think that there's kids out there that are also getting nightly things and things that might seem scary to them. Um, just like I did as a kid. So yeah, I it's a weird time that we're in right now. So I can
It's
imagine where.
It is. And, I'm definitely like, for my niece, I mean, right now she's going through a tough time and she's having these nightmares and she's 5. And it's hard to say, like, okay, what's going on? Like, how can we,
Right.
what's this, it's
Yeah.
that. And then we don't want to, I don't want to, maybe she is seeing things,
Yeah.
we need to
Yeah.
kind of say, all right, what's going on here? And let's read this lighthouse book.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get you some crystals. We're going to call in some angels and let's get your coloring book. She loves color.
Oh yeah. Well, another book.
You know what I mean? And work with the angels. And
Yeah.
and finding your voice. Did you find that with your books? Did you ever have a period in your life where maybe you didn't really speak your voice and by writing these books was it able to help you speak your voice?
Yeah. I for sure. Actually, so when my mother passed away, I I really had a hard time with trying to find um just like a happy place. And also to connect to, because I felt a lot of guilt for having dreams about her passing before she passed. And I thought, well, maybe if I would have talked about it, maybe if I would have told her, um, all these, but then it's like, well, she had cancer. So it's like, even if I told her I dreamt of her passing, it probably wouldn't have changed
Yeah.
what happened. But like, um, but I thought that I would try to connect with where she was or where she had gone. And so it sparked this entire journey of me going through where I thought this was like, it helped me find my voice as an author, because I went to a different church every weekend for a year, and I visited all these different denominations, every one I could think of and find access to for a Sunday. I would go, and I would write a journal entry about it, afterwards, and then at the end of a year I had a book. And so I turned that was my first novel, and it was called Knocking on Heaven's Doors. And it helped me not only heal, but it also helped me see that I can write.
Right.
Like I was
Right.
like, this could maybe help someone else who's lost somebody, or someone else who's interested in other denominations,
Yeah.
or ways to connect to God or higher power or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
God. But like, it was my way of connecting to um all kinds of things,
Of
like
course.
finding a connection to Jesus, finding a connection to angels, finding my voice as an author. All these things just kind of happened. And then I met this pastor. Her name is Amy. She was a Christian pastor in Portland, Oregon, when I was out there.
Mhm.
And I remember she and I went for a walk after one of the services, and I was telling her why I was there. And she was like, oh, well, this is just like, like the old mystics. And I was like, what's a mystic? And she was like, oh, you need to research. And she was like, read these sections in the Bible and do this, this, and this. And she kind of opened my eyes to the fact that, like, it's not wrong.
Right.
Like, it's not wrong to have dreams that are either foretelling, or dreams that are meant to serve a higher purpose or to inspire people or to, you know, help someone else along their path.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, so you're in the right place, you're doing the right things, nothing's wrong with you. And I was like, oh my God. So it was like all these beautiful things kind of all came together from that, like, big tragedy.
Yeah.
So that right there was like me kind of finding my voice when I didn't feel like I had one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, they say that heart hurts are rocket fuel for your ascension,
it
so when
was.
yeah, you're like, you're not kidding. And
Yeah,
I love the fact that you were able to connect with this pastor, Amy, who then was able to say, no, it's okay.
yeah.
I love that. I want to ask you this. Are you still in contact with Amy?
I so I moved away from Oregon like 6 years
Yeah.
ago, and I've not kept in touch with her. I think I emailed her like after
Yeah.
I wrote the chapter because I wanted to make sure that I portrayed her right. And so I was like, is this okay? Is this what I wrote about you okay? I don't want to like, make you sound a different way or and so I kept in touch with her that way for a little
Yeah.
bit. But it was it was nice because I felt like, well, if I was Christian, I wouldn't be having these dreams because that felt conflicting with what I felt was Christianity. And
Oh,
so her words to me were so validating that, like, oh, I can still be Christian. I can still believe in God and Jesus and be here and also have these dreams and also write
absolutely.
these books and have these experiences.
Yeah.
So it was nice. Like it was what I needed.
Yeah. Well, they say that, what do they say? That there's people that come into our life that could be just for a moment, just for a year. You know what I mean? It sounds like she was one of those pivotal people on your path.
Oh yeah.
Amazing.
She was, yeah. There were a lot of other
Of
people
course. Of course.
in there too, but she really like stands out as one that I was like, oh, okay, thank you.
I like that. Is there any advice before we wrap up this interview that we'd like to give to anyone that's listening about, maybe just following your path and, maybe digging in a little bit more for the things that are going on in your life and how to kind of empower yourself to move forward?
Yeah, I would say that for anybody who keeps getting kind of like a poke to do something, or you think about something multiple times a day and you're like, why do I keep thinking about this? Why do I just feel this calling to do this? That you should just do it. Just try it, like
Yeah.
um I kept feeling like I was supposed to learn how to write for theater. So I'm going to volunteer at the children's theater and I'm going to learn how to write that way, and
Yeah.
um like, so don't be scared to try something. And if you fail, then, try again. Just keep
So
trying.
true. Just keep trying. Just keep trying because
Yeah.
there's lessons in times that you are failing and that just keep on moving forward. Definitely.
Yeah.
And if anyone wants to get in touch with you, is the best way to get in touch with you through your website?
Through my website. So it's theblom.com because theblom.com was taken. So it's theblom.com spelled out .com. So
And I keep mispronouncing your last name. It's Blom, and I keep saying Bloom, and I know
no,
that
it's
there's only
Bloom.
one O in it, and I apologize.
No, it's Bloom. You were right. It is
Oh.
but like for the website is I just spelled it out. Yeah.
I actually like your website name. I think it's kind of fun, to be honest with you. I'm like, I love this. Well, thank you, Tracy, so much for joining us in our interview today. You are a pleasure and an amazing person, and I am so excited to go get these books for my niece and even for my son. And I'm just, oh, you're just amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.